Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Paul Del Ponte, Executive Director of the National Crime Prevention Council. As we strengthen our resolve in fighting fentanyl, let's explore some of the issues. The issues around this heartbreaking speed in which we've seen a rise in deaths are multifold. From America's obsession with buying fake products, to international drug cartels, to big technology, to even struggling social media companies trying to stay in business. It's affecting many aspects of our lives, and unfortunately, tragically. Moving equally fast is the growth of a new breed of vibrant advocacy to help stop this crisis. And we're going to see three of our leaders and heroes in those efforts talk to us today. The other thing we have seen across this country is from parents to high school students, there are more and more people who want to get involved. There's a movement building. From the crisis, people are responding to their best instincts. They want to help. They want to know what to do. The National Crime Prevention Council has partnered with our friends at the United States Patent and Trademark Office to help get the message out as part of the Go for Real campaign that will make Americans think again before they buy a fake pill which could potentially take their lives. I want to sort of kick things off and show you the latest public service announcement from the Go for Real campaign, featuring my boss, McGruff the Crime Dog, and I will let McGruff tell you himself.
Think buying fake products is harmless? Think again. Think fake cosmetics are tested and safe? Think again. Think buying fake products is harmless? Think again. Think fake cosmetics are tested and safe? Think again. Think that medicine you can buy off social media is high quality? Think again. Counterfeits are made in unsafe conditions, potentially using hazardous and even lethal ingredients that could harm you and others. Each year, billions of dollars worth of counterfeit products are sold in the U.S. I smell big crime. Think about it. If you don't know where the products came from, how could you know where the money goes? You're smart. Buy smart. Go for real.
Thank you, McGruff. And we are getting that message out to millions and millions of people because it's an important one that people don't realize. And I think one of the myths we have to unravel is the notion that somebody was out seeking fentanyl. And the fact of the matter is we have companies on social media platforms, and we'll get more into that in some more detail, who are literally duping people into death. And that's why we're here today, to do something about it. And I am very pleased. As I said, we've got 3 heroes in that effort. I've already spoken about the potent force of advocacy that has popped up around this issue. The leaders of that have been parents who've lost young children from this crisis. The fact that they have had the wherewithal to use their own personal tragedy, their own life stories, to help other parents from that same fate is nothing but heroic. And we have 2 of the superhuman in that effort with us today. Amy Neville, who, when I first started working on this issue, was one of the first people I started talking to, and have just grown to appreciate her more and more every day. And Jaime Puerte, who leads victims of illicit drugs, VOID, and is again using his own life story, his own wherewithal to help make sure parents don't face the same fate. The other era where we are just seeing an intensity like we have never seen before in a very positive way is from law enforcement. That from the local police officer who responds to that 911 call, to our many officers from Homeland Security working the borders to keep fentanyl out of this country, there is a urgency, a sense of mission to really combat this that is just beyond admirable. And joining us with today from Homeland Security Investigation is Josie Abrego, and she is one of Homeland Security Investigation's top people involved in keeping fentanyl out of the country. And we'll get more into the importance of what those efforts mean in terms of from tons to pounds to milligrams. That's all very important. One of the things that becomes evident after you begin working on this issue and delving into it is the impact it makes on human life. A lot of times, if all somebody knows about the fentanyl crisis is what they might see in the headlines or on social media, the view is often distorted. It doesn't tell the human story of this. And I know, having worked closely and heard Amy talk many times, just want to kick things off. Have Amy tell us a little bit about her son, Alex. Not Alex, who met that tragic end, but Alex is a person, because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about young children who really were duped into something, and they're not with us anymore, but their memories live on, and that's important. Amy, so if you would, please tell us a little bit about Alex as a person.
I love talking about Alex. It's painful, but I love it at the same time because he was my baby boy. Alexander was Alex was high maintenance. I want to clarify that. He was, from the second he was conceived, I think he was high maintenance, but he was a very deep and thinking kid. He loved to learn about the world around him. He was very into history. World War II was his favorite time period. When he was in elementary school, we used to go to Civil War reenactments because that was his interest. That's the things he wanted to do on the weekends. And so we would go seek those things out. He also really loved video games. You know, he had a great time gaming. For Alex, playing video games was a full body sport. You know, we always have this image of a kid sitting on the couch playing video games. No, Alex was running in place, jumping, breaking a sweat, calling for water. Mom, I need water, because he'd be parched from all of the physicalness he put into his gameplay. He loved animals. He had 2 lizards, a dog and a cat when he passed away. We still have his dog. His dog is still with us. Actually, his dog and his cat are still around with us. Those animals mean a lot to me because, you know, they were his. And he also, you know, he was in Cub Scouts his whole life. He loved the uniform, right? That's what drew him into Cub Scouts. And so transitioning into, you know, the Boy Scout years, and along with that, he started becoming a skateboarder. He was skateboarding a lot. Alex had always been an entrepreneur. He always had little business ideas, and his first big business idea was to have an art stand, because the lemonade stands were played out. He thought he should have an art stand. So he and his friend were selling their original works out in front of our house a couple of days a week there when he was about 7 years old. But when he passed away, he actually had an eBay business that he was really good at. He was very organized. He had all of his packages lined up. In fact, after he passed away, we were still sending off packages because they were still selling. And to his foresight, he had everything all set up and ready to go, and we were able to take care of that. So he was the light of my life. You know, he and his sister mean everything to me, and we miss him every day.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Amy. Jaime, you heard me mention fake pills. We talk about it. McGruff talks about it in the public service announcement. Let our listeners know a little bit about how this happens. Why are they fake pills? What are they in? What are we dealing with?
First and foremost, thank you so much for the invitation. A little history on it. Back in 2016, to no fault of his own under the Obama administration, new prescribing procedures were emitted through the Veterans Administration, and which really handcuffed physicians on how much opioids, or how many opioids they could prescribe to their patients who were suffering from chronic pain. And in doing that, to no fault of their own, they didn't have a plan B. So there were a lot of people already who were addicted to opioids like Percocets and Oxycontin and oxycodone. And now that they couldn't get their prescriptions, they started going online and getting this. And this is when the Mexican cartels made a conscious decision to start fabricating and manufacturing prescription, or should I say counterfeit pills, made to look exactly like pharmaceutical grade pills that could be bought or that you pick up with a prescription at a pharmacy like at CVS or Walgreens or something like that. So the cartels used a distribution system. It was the perfect distribution system to sell their pills through social media sites like Snapchat, Instagram, Meta, TikTok, etc. They made these pills look exactly like pharmaceutical grade pills, and they were very readily available. Drug trafficking and the sales of these illicit counterfeit opioids. It's not like drugs back in the 80s or 90s where you went to somebody's home or apartment, or you went to a corner and you bought these drugs. So obviously it's still done like that, but most of it is now online. And when kids go online, you know, we've normalized to such an extent taking medication in this country that most of these children feel like it is absolutely normal to ingest a pill. And unfortunately, a lot of our children do not have the coping skills to get over very stressful situations, in like, you know, taking tests, or maybe there's financial problems at home, low self-esteem, cyberbullying, or bullying all together. And, you know, they want a way to get out of their mind. So unfortunately, they'll go on to a social media site like Snapchat, or a friend recommends, hey, take this pill, it'll make you feel better. But what they don't know is what they're truly receiving. And we know this because the DEA has already said that 100% of all the pills being bought on social media are fake, period. There's not one pill on there that is a pharmaceutical grade pill. So all of the pills are counterfeit pills. They're made with filler, binder, and fentanyl. And if it has 2 milligrams of fentanyl or more in the pill, it can take the life of another, obviously depending on the person's physiology, their body mass, and et cetera. So that's what we're contending with now, which is why we've seen since 2016, the number of deaths in the United States. In 2016, we started seeing it go up, and it just absolutely explode in 2020 with COVID-19.
Absolutely. The speed at which it has grown is just mind-boggling. Josie, can you give us some dimension of the size, the seizures? Like what are we dealing with in terms of volume? I think you're on mute.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with everyone today, to be on the platform with Amy and with Jaime. So HSI, I've been with the agency since Department of Homeland Security since 2004. I've been with HSI since 2008. I've been involved with various narcotics groups, human smuggling groups, trafficking groups. And I can honestly tell you the urgency that we feel, we know that this is an all hands on deck, whole government approach, not just HSI is combating this. I was assigned this position after Department of Homeland Security released our strategy for combating synthetic illicit opioids in December of 2022. In March of 2023, and we hit the ground running. We started to combine everything, all of our resources, to basically go after four big goals: to reduce the international and domestic supply chain, to create a cross-border financial criminal center. It's like a marriage of our cyber, social media, our financial units, our bulk cash smuggling, cryptocurrency, everything that would have some type of interplay of social media along with the financing, because where you have drugs, you have money, where you have money, you have weapons. And under all of these different umbrellas or different pillars that we are combating with weapons, with combating the pill presses, with combating the precursors. In just fiscal year 2023, we seized, with the different initiatives that we have, over 2 million precursor chemicals alone. One of our other initiatives that is targeting the binders, the encapsulating machines, the powders, like, you know, what Jaime was saying, all of those other little separate components, you know, where you have a pill pressing machine, but then they're also getting precursors. Well, A plus B equals C. We seized, you know, close to over 2,000 to date with just that initiative alone. It has exploded. We have done various things within HSI to partner up with everyone possible, everyone from DEA to our CBP partners, to our TSA partners, to our United States Postal partners, to FDA. And now we are engaging more closely with our private partnerships, you know, to do outreaches. That's pillar number 4, is the outreaches. And we have done, just in the time that I have been here and since March, over 20 outreaches with various stakeholders, much like these platforms today, to just start getting the word out there, from everything from know your customer to red flags to community outreaches like this. It is an honor to be on this platform again, to speak with everybody holistically about our fight. I think HSI plays a key role with this because, for example, what a lot of people don't know is we enforce the immigration and customs laws, immigration being people, customs being product, anything that crosses that border somehow, some way, whether it's physical or digitally, we have a purview over. Thus, we have over 400 different authorities that we enforce. And port of entries are everywhere, not just at the southwest border. They're at the northwest border. They're at our express consignment mail facilities. They are at our airports, our land ports, rail and trail. So we are enforcing at every opportunity that we can, whether it's a civil, criminal, or administrative remedy. We've had over 17 sanctions in the last year alone with one of our initiatives, 12 of them being with Chinese nationals, 4 of them being with Mexican nationals. So we are taking every tool that we can from every component and utilizing it to combat at every level.
Great, great. To put that work in some perspective, and Jaime mentioned 2 milligrams.
Whew.
You're talking something that is on the tip of a pencil. And if you can see the sugar sweetener packet, it's 250 milligrams. If this were full of fentanyl, it'd be enough fentanyl to kill 500 people. And that is part of both the lethalness that we're talking about, as well as the fakery, the trickery, that you can get a pill press with a very unsophisticated operation. Use those binders that Jaime and Josie spoke about, and create something that looks like an Adderall, that looks like a Xanax, that looks like an oxycodone, and go on a social media platform. So basically, we have a few international drug cartels who are using our latest, best technology and sophisticated supply chains to set up networks. You mentioned Snapchat, And I know there's a major legal action brought in California by Amy, and other parents against Snapchat. And yesterday was a big day. It was the first day of the trial. Can you tell us a little bit about what this very impressive group of parents are doing, trying to get done, and some of the obstacles you're facing?
Well, the short version is we could go all day about that topic, but the short version is we really want change. There are far too many lives being lost through this specific app. Our attorneys said it in court yesterday that Snapchat has more drugs on their platform, drug-related content happening than all the other big social media companies combined. That is a problem, right? Snapchat comes out publicly and says, oh, we're doing X, Y, and Z, but the reality is no one can verify that. There's no third-party auditing of this company. We are supposed to take their word for it, but we are at a time where too much death and destruction has happened on that platform, has been allowed to happen on that platform. We've seen Snapchat start getting warnings back in 2017 that they need to do something or it's going to be out of control. And now my Alexander, Jaime, son Daniel, they're a side effect of that out of controlness that has happened on these platforms. At the time of Alex's death and the time of Daniel's death, Daniel died just a couple months, the month before Alexander died. These companies were telling us, look out for bullies and look out for sexual predators. And we did. We listened to what these companies were telling us. We believed them. We bought the bill of goods, and unfortunately we paid the ultimate price for that. And so we have got to get them to change what they're doing and not take their word for it. I'm sure Jaime has plenty to add on to that, and so I'll let him have a go at it.
Please join in.
Thank you. Amy hit it right on it. Yeah, she's so coherent on this subject. If it's illegal on the streets, why should it be legal online, first and foremost? Secondly, any child that's going to go buy or try to buy a beer, they automatically card it, right? You got to be 21 years of age, whereas there's absolutely no verification of any kind whatsoever on a social media app like Snapchat. 3, like we said before, if a kid were to put in a search bar oxycodone or Percocet or something like that, the algorithms of the social media app in and of itself starts pushing content to these children, and it's very harmful content at that. And the quick ad feature of Snapchat, for example, is, a child, all he has to do or she do is press a button, and all of a sudden they find themselves with 200 new friends who they don't even know. So drug dealers are taking advantage of this because of the disappearing feature of all the text messages or the communication between two persons. And in a child's brain, when they add a new friend, for them it's a little rush because they don't understand, they don't get it, and so they feel like the more friends that they have, the better. So they're not going to go into their app or into their settings and just meet people that they know, 1, and 2, that quick ad. There's also a map feature on there too, where a drug dealer, all he has to see on the map is where that client is, press a button on that icon, and it'll give him the directions of how to get to that person's house. It's as easy as delivering a pizza. That's how easy it is right now. And unfortunately, due to Section 230C, which is the Communications Decency Act, which is not decent at all, in my own opinion, these social media companies are trying to immunize themselves from any kind of lawsuits or tort due to the fact that Section 230C protects them. And what their 1996, when our legislators in Congress wrote Section 230C of the Communications Decency Act. In 1996, there's no way they could have foreseen where the internet would be in 2023 going into 2024. It would be impossible. So this is a very antiquated law. It's a law that needs to be changed. I don't know what's going to happen with this lawsuit, but I personally feel, and I'm not going to talk for anybody else, but I personally feel that we need to go to Congress and have them insert language of a duty of care provision into the law so that if we insert the duty of care law into, or the duty of care provision into section 230C, that would force internet companies or internet service providers, whatever you want to call them, to have to police themselves and make sure that their customers or their users of these platforms keep their clientele safe. Because let's not forget that they're also grabbing all of their information and they're selling it to third parties as well. So these internet companies are making hand over fist, billions upon billions of dollars. And quite frankly, they're making a lot of money off of the, the backs of our dead children. And that has to stop. The United States needs to protect its most vulnerable, which is our children. And we're doing a horrible, horrible job at that right now. It needs to change, Paul.
Can
Thank
I
you for
elaborate
that.
on one aspect of it real quick?
Yes,
Unless we're going to keep talking about social media the whole time, and I will be happy to wait. But I want to point out something, especially to parents who might be listening to this and think, well, my kid would never seek out drugs on Snapchat or on a social media. My kid just wouldn't do that, right? The reality is many of our kids don't intend to do that, but somehow these dealers connect with them in this space and they actually groom them. There's a whole grooming process. And this is coming from the kids. The kids are telling me about this. So what they're not doing on day one with these drug dealers, they might be doing on interaction 15, interaction 20, because they built up their egos. They told them how cool and smart and funny they are. And now our kids are falling for their tricks. And then more recently, this has come up in the last couple of listening sessions I've done with teens, is that a kid puts it out on Snap. This is, my dog died today. I'm so sad. I've had that dog since I was born. Next thing you know, they get a message in their DMs from this person who says, oh, I see you're having a bad day. What's going on? And they reply back, my dog died. I'm really sad. I can't get over being sad today. And the dealer comes back, is like, I'm really sorry to hear that, but I have something that'll help you feel better. And now our kids are in these low moments, judgment, their decision-making skills are low in these low moments. And now they're doing things that we'd never thought they'd do before. So it's a variety of reasons. And then add that, kids who are self-diagnosing is a whole other avenue.
Thank you for that. I want to go in a little bit more on section 230 because it's important. My understanding of the lawsuit is that Snap has filed a motion to have it dismissed based on this 230, which largely has to do with First Amendment protections. Is that correct?
Well, there's two facets, I believe, to this. One is part of the lawsuit is product liability, but what they're arguing is that they are not a product, that they are a service. So that part of the lawsuit needs to be quashed. And yes, the immunity of section 230C is to protect free speech. But I counter,
Right.
Is it free speech for a grown man to send, and I hate to use this analogy, but I don't mean to make anybody uncomfortable, but is it free speech for a grown man to send pictures of his private parts to an 11 or a 12-year-old girl? Is it free speech for a drug dealer to reach out to a 13 or 14-year-old? We just found out 2 weeks ago, a 13-year-old in Hermosa Beach, who the parent happens to be a friend of somebody in the DEA that we know very well, was able to connect with the drug dealer on Snapchat, and now that 13-year-old is dead. Does that make any sense to you? How is that free speech? It's not free speech. It's criminal activity. It's nefarious actors taking advantage of section 230C to sell their poison in an unabated fashion and having as much reach out there as possible. And that's why this law needs to change, Paul. I hope I answered your question.
You did. You got right to it, that, what is free speech? I'm sure Thomas Jefferson did not have drug dealers in mind when he was thinking free speech. And I want to remain optimistic that the judge will let the trial proceed and reject the argument that section 230, when it comes to selling illegal narcotics, is a matter of free speech, because to me that raises a bigger issue as to who we are as a civilized society. A civilized society protects children. A civilized society protects free speech. An uncivil society conflates criminal activity and free speech. That is how terrorist regimes begin. That is how human rights are violated. It is by somebody claiming something is free speech when it's not at all. And I think that's a slippery slope if the judge should rule otherwise. If the judge should rule otherwise, I think we should get Congress to move as quickly as we can to completely repeal Section 230 and throw a monkey wrench into some things because there it is. Now, folks who know me and follow our NCPC's activity on this issue, we have not been silent on this. We have, in December, we asked Attorney General Garland to have the Justice Department look into the sale of fake pills on Snapchat and other social media platforms, but especially Snapchat. And our understanding from everything we've heard is the Federal Bureau of Investigation is on the job. President Biden, in his State of the Union address in January, said that his administration will hold social media companies responsible as part of the efforts on fentanyl. And talking to Republicans on Capitol Hill and Republicans in state houses, including attorney generals across the country, it is a bipartisan issue. And it puzzles me a little bit as to, in this world, in this time we live in, everything is a partisan issue. But this one isn't. It really is a matter of, both sides want to see something. So I'm a little puzzled, and I'm sure our three panelists are as well. So I won't try to ask you a question in which I know you're puzzled about, but how is Snapchat surviving this long? Maybe Wall Street will do them in before the FBI does, but for the CEO of Snapchat, who's made many enemies along the way, maybe he ought to take advice from Taylor Swift and realize karma's going to hunt you down. Anyway, moving on a bit, let's talk about some of the activities that are going on. Void, the Alexander Neville Foundation. Amy referred to some of the listening sessions she's doing with teens. DEA, Homeland Security, increasing its public interface and public outreach. Let's talk about some of those things. Jaime, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what Void is doing and what Void is up to and how people can get involved?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, Amy and I actually stalked her when her son died. I reached out to her sister, Melissa. And even though Amy has her own foundation, we're both on the same page. Void has been up to a lot, even though we have a full-time jobs. We have, for example, successfully partnered with the County of San Bernardino, which is the largest county in the United States in land mass, in having a fentanyl initiative that was launched 2 months ago. And so far, in a meeting that we had with them, they've had about 28 million views to their fentanyl initiative, which includes PSAs, podcasts, peer-to-peer PSAs, commercial billboards all over San Bernardino County, and also PSAs in movie theaters. And that is and it's coming into school, in-house school presentations on fentanyl. And the way we do that is with the documentary that both Amy and I, thank you to Amy for that, because she was the one who got us in there. But we were involved in a very powerful documentary that's called Dead on Arrival. Dead on Arrival is a documentary that talks about 4 families who lost their children due to fentanyl poisoning. They're 4 very different stories, but it highlights and, in my own opinion, perfectly explains exactly what is happening in the United States of America due to this fentanyl poisoning epidemic that we're having right now. So both Amy's foundation and my foundation and many other foundations, Paul, are using the documentary to going into junior high schools and high schools and presenting the documentary and following it up with a PowerPoint presentations. And the children absolutely are, they come in, once it comes on, they take their hoodies down, they take their earbuds out, and they're glued to the documentary. So Well, that's what we're at right now. I just finished, myself and Steve Filson, who's my partner as well. We were down at the 3rd Marine Air Wing, and we did a presentation to 15,000 Marines in 5 days. We've done presentations in conjunction with Amy in Grand Junction, Colorado. Amy has gone to high schools and junior high schools all across the nation. We have as well, and we're going to continue doing that because we know that we're not going to be able to arrest as much as we would love to arrest our way out of this problem. I feel like the only way that we're going to be able to abate these senseless drug deaths, especially these children between 11 and 17 years of age, 11 to 18 years of age, is through education, awareness, and prevention. That's the only way, and that is having partnerships as well. We partnered with Homeland Security. We've given presentations to Homeland Security. We've done also to Ernst & Young. We've also have some presentations set up for the Border Patrol as well. And some, we're going to Georgetown Unified School District in Texas, and we're giving presentations there, as well as other places in Texas. So we have a lot on our plate. We're just trying to do as much as we can with the time that we have. And we feel that the reason why we're into space, Paul, by the way, is because for example, when my son died, I had never heard of fentanyl before. And the first thing that came to mind is, why have I not heard about this? And why is nobody talking about this? And there had been many deaths before Daniel's death, and it didn't seem, to no fault of their own. It's like, you know, and Ms. Abrego, I hope you don't take umbrage with this, but you know, when law enforcement finds a dead child in a room, they see that it was due to drugs. Well, the first thing they say is, well, it's just an overdose, and no investigations were done. One of the first things that myself, Amy, and Steve did was we toured Southern California. We went to all 5 counties. We talked to law enforcement. We told them who our children were. And because of that tour that we had, at least 3 counties started their own fentanyl prevention task force, where they started investigating these deaths, not as overdoses, but as criminal homicide. So we've done a lot, and there's still a lot to go and a lot to do, but we have a lot going on right now. It's just don't have enough time in this seminar to talk about it.
I used the term at the beginning, superhuman, and after hearing that, you know what I mean. Thank you for all that and all you're doing, and all you're going to wake up tomorrow and keep doing. That's really moving. Amy, I know you've got a lot too. Want to quickly add a couple things?
Sure. In addition to traveling and visiting schools and doing parent education nights and talking to our youth, I've spoken at several national conferences. I've got one coming up next week, and then I'll be in Southern California all week for their drug prevention week at various schools and various parent nights. We also, in July, filmed the follow-up film to Dead on Arrival. It's a film that will be from the youth perspective. Hopefully that'll be out at the beginning of the year. That was actually, we had a really good time filming that. I brought in bereaved families. We all stayed at a Airbnb in Los Angeles and had a really nice couple of days together. That was probably the best part. I'm sure the film's going to be great. Dominic's amazing at what he does, but that was really a special time. I recently filmed a virtual field trip for the DEA for their Operation Prevention program that they have. People can just go to Operation Prevention, search it, or Discovery Education and find that. It's really helpful if you need something to use in a classroom. It is excellent. We have a screening guide or a facilitator's guide for the Dead on Arrival film on our website at anfhelp.org that people can access and use for their own presentations. So those are all the things I can remember off the top of my head. So that's the short of it there.
The long short of it. Josie, can you tell us a little bit more about, so from about 2016 to now, what has law enforcement learned, and how have things changed in terms of the approach to stopping fentanyl?
I'm going to piggyback off of what Jaime was saying earlier about the overdose and the responses. Roughly about the same time period in California, in the San Diego area, we noticed that there were a lot of overdoses occurring. And we started formulating our first, what we would call FORT teams, fentanyl overdose response teams. We have FORT and FAST teams, where we worked a case backwards. And we had that team in a 3 to 4 year period did over 400 investigations. And the most important thing that I can say about that, it's expanded to our BEST, our border enforcement teams, We have approximately 92 of them. We have 14 Fort and Fast teams strategically throughout. That team alone, when it first began, responded to over 400. And now we've expanded that methodology to our different locations because, and this is what Amy and Jaime already know this, the last person, probably the last 2 to 3 that your kid spoke to is going to be that drug dealer. And we're going to go after those telecommunications. We're going to go after those phones. We're going to go after the historical events to work that case backwards to hold them accountable for those steps. And I'm proud to say that we have expanded those teams. The other thing that we expanded was our transnational criminal investigative units. Those are our force multipliers with our units from other countries for the prevention part of it. We've expanded to over 600 of them throughout the world and in over 40 different countries to work on like the prevention side of it. When it comes to our state and locals, who are also another force multiplier on these best teams, these fast teams, these force fort teams, we have now over an estimated 4,000 of them. So we were doing everything that we can to possibly combat it from the educate to empower and to prevent, like he was saying, and engage. Like I was speaking about previously, we did a lot of engagement with Know Your Customers, with other financial institutions, some social media platforms to let them know if you see A, it's probably an indicator of this. Because like Jaime was saying earlier, I'm a true proponent of we're not going to wrest our way out of this. This is a private partnership, a public partnership, a government partnership at whatever level that you are, and that we are all on hand deck to combat this further. We have in our strategy to increase those Fort and Fast teams, to give them the proper capabilities and resources that they need to readily get the information that they need to find out who those drug dealers were. That goes back to the previous conversation that you were having with what do we need? We need social media to respond to our judicial things that we are asking for respectfully in a timely manner. So that way we can get to not just who those drug dealers were, but other information. We need social media to whatever information that they are gathering of that particular, what we would call a target of investigation, they would just call a user on their platform, provide that information to law enforcement readily, quickly, thoroughly, so that we can investigate it properly. That is one of the things that we do find challenging from time to time. We are in no means to infringe on anyone's First Amendment, anyone's amendments, any civil liberties. We are just here to get the bad guy. Since we're not going to be able to arrest our way out of this, we just ask that social media be responsible and respond to our subpoenas, our search warrants, our requests, so that we can get to them in a timely manner. And for example, with these overdose responses, react to them and hold people accountable.
Along those lines, what can be done in terms of public pressure on some of these companies? I mean, and again, I knew of Amy and Jaime before I even met them on these platforms. I've seen them both speak on different platform engagements. That's going to be part of phase 2 with us, with Homeland Security, is engaging further with a younger, audience. Everything from, the middle schools to the high schools to the colleges, that it's not just experimenting. This is, you're taking a risk, taking a pill, half a pill, a quarter pill. And so I think, the engagement part of it is incredibly important. And I think, there's always room for improvement. We recognized very early, again, I'm just 6 months into overseeing our implementation plan. So now we're going to go into phase 2 of this, keep those other engagements going, but keep the engagement going now with our younger population, so that hopefully, I know nobody really wants to scare them, into not doing something, but if it can, like maybe, have a second thought and a pause is to trying something, then we are saving a life, because our platform is one life lost is one life too many, wherever that is at. That is. So obviously younger people are large users of social media platforms. That is the company's bread and butter. I will tell you, the more and more I hear young people are engaged on this issue. Sadly, the reasons they're becoming engaged is because they lost a friend and they want to do something. This is sort of tabling season, as they call it on college campuses. We did an event out in California a couple weeks ago with some young college students who came up to us and said, all excited because they knew we were going to be there, and said, we did tabling on fentanyl, and we handed out Narcan, and they were doing things. Would love to get Amy or Jaime's thoughts on how do we channel that energy to make the point to these companies, hey, you've got your customers are doing things. Your customers are doing more than you're doing. What can you do? Would love your thoughts on that.
Well, I know that it's been said by other organizations out there that we need to bring social media to the table, right? They need to be a part of this conversation, but that's been tried. Honestly, it's going to be these lawsuits and legislation that are ultimately going to get them to come on board and to do the right thing. But when I am talking to youth, I always talk to them about, and again, everything I do is coming from them, right? I'm just kind of regurgitating what it is that they're teaching me. But one of the things we talk about is how they're being duped by these social media companies, right? And that they're at a point where they need to take back the power from these companies. We think that Snapchat is this product, we put it on our phone and we engage with this product. But the reality is, once we engage with Snapchat, we become the product. Now we're being bought and sold all day long on this platform. Kids don't like that. That really ticks them off. That gets under their skin. And so when I were able to talk about it on that level and how they're being taken advantage of, then they start to think about their use differently. And then rather than me telling them what they can do to stay safe, I'm like, what are some things that you guys could do to be safe? I'll get those kids to take out their phone right there in the classroom. Let's change your settings right now if you're comfortable with that, and get them to turn off their locating devices. I've had kids email me afterwards, send me before and after of their screen showing, look, I deleted Snapchat today. I've had enough. So we got to keep talking about it with them. I think it's going to be a slow movement, but once we pick up momentum, it'll be unstoppable.
I would agree with that. I think ultimately is going to be civic engagement that solves this problem, whether it's civic engagement with action against social media companies, civil engagement that creates new legislation, or whatever it is going to be getting people involved. And just as this crisis is targeting young people, I think it's going to be young people who save us. A question coming in from one of our viewers, listeners, is the role of local prosecution. A little bit about how that works in terms of how do you go after a drug dealer? Is it common? Is it hard? Part of it is, and I'll let our panel address this, but part of it is getting to the top tier. There are a lot of layers, but I'll throw that open to our panel. Josie, if you want to maybe take a first stab at that and give a little enlightenment on prosecutions.
Absolutely. So early in my career, we're taught a variety of different laws that we can enforce within our own authorities. But I had the honor of being on a lot of task forces with state and locals, with other federal agencies. And part of that is empowerment. If I don't have the authority, whether it's a civil, administrative, criminal authority to enforce something, then perhaps one of my partners do. If it's a low threshold for federal prosecution, then we may actually use the state and local as an option for us to go after them in that manner. And same thing for all of our overdose response teams. We rely heavily on our state and local partnership because it is investigating from that platform at that level first, where it's a state prosecution, could become federal. If it becomes federal after it meets a certain threshold, then we go and approach our federal prosecutors on like, we have this, will you take this for federal prosecution? And so that's why the task forces are incredibly important, because if I don't have something in my toolbox, maybe one of the other 5 members from 5 different task forces with their authorities do, and it's a force multiplier for us to prosecute them on one level or another.
And if I'm not mistaken, there are 25 states in the nation that have drug-induced homicide laws on the books. And it can go as little as a slap on the wrist, like in Colorado, or Oklahoma, that's a life sentence, which is why many parents who lose their children would rather have the feds pick up their cases, because there's a statute where the distribution of illicit controlled substance that causes the life of another is a minimum 20-year to life federal prison sentence. So there's that, Paul. The other thing too is that unfortunately it becomes very, very political in the locally when you have I hate to get into this, but I'll just say it. When you have local district attorneys who are very progressive in nature and don't want to prosecute these types of crimes because they feel like it's going to unfortunately incarcerate more people of color and Hispanics, for example. So it's very difficult. I know, for example, Los Angeles County, I got word that they didn't want to do anything. One, because it was a minor who may have facilitated the lethal pill to my son, but two, because they think that the perpetrator is Hispanic. And so it's very, very unfortunate. It's very difficult. But we have to just keep going forward. You know, it just depends on where you live.
Absolutely. Going forward is the right message.
And just to piggyback off of what Jaime was just saying, we do have a lot of federal investigations under our initiatives that are pursuing those different federal criminal violations precisely because of that, because they were the cause of death. And that's why those overdose response teams are incredibly important, because we can hold them accountable at a higher level. And it has those sentencing enhancements.
In terms of bringing this back to the personal level more for people who are listening, and I know we've got some parents on, if you could tell a parent one thing about this issue that could help them impress upon their kids the urgency, what would that be?
If you think that it can't happen to you, I'm sorry, but you're sorely mistaken. You know, due to the stigma of addiction and overdose in our nation, when somebody hears of a child or a person who has died due to ingesting a pill, the first thing that a parent thinks is that, well, that can never happen to our family because, one, we don't have anybody in our family who's using drugs on a recreational basis, or two, we don't have anybody who's addicted to drugs in our family. But as we already know, the wide reach of social media, you know, my son died in the safest place in the world, which was his bedroom. It reached him there. And if this nefarious activity and poison could reach my son, who was, by the way, not addicted to drugs, it can happen to anybody. We know this scourge does not discriminate your socioeconomic status. It doesn't discriminate your race. It doesn't discriminate your age. It doesn't discriminate where you live. It is taking anyone by storm. If you look at the 2022 numbers alone, we're up to they were tentatively 109,000 or approximately 109,833 deaths due to drugs. 75% of those due to fentanyl, and the numbers continues going up. So think about that. And for all parents out there, you know, again, if you think it can't happen to you, I'm sorry to give you some very bad news, but it can. And I'm sure Amy can also talk to the parents and tell them what to watch out for, because she's really good at that. So I'll pass that off to her.
Thanks. You know, what I always tell parents, especially when we keep talking about social media in the light that we are, their knee-jerk reaction is to, we got to take these off their phones, right? To get rid of these social media apps off their phones, which I wish that was the easy solution. And it's just not, because it's going to create a whole other set of problems. These apps are designed for addiction, and now our kids are hooked on them. But I would advise parents, ask their kid, hey, what do you already know about drugs? What do you know about drugs on Snapchat? Or what have you seen drugs on Snapchat? The way your kiddo answers that question is going to tell you everything you need to know, right? Red flags might be raised in that conversations, but sometimes what happens is a kid might not see anything of drugs on Snapchat, but then they come back and be like, well, I haven't seen any drugs, but you know, I've been getting these inappropriate pictures from this person, or I've been seeing this bully that keeps coming into my messages or saying mean things to me. And it opens the door to a greater conversation. And then also our job as parents, when they do tell us they've seen something, or maybe they're feeling like they can talk to you about it, we can't freak out. Don't freak out. We have to stay calm, listen to what they're telling us, and be ready to take action and help them in any way we can. Many times the stories I hear back from parents is, my kid opened up to me about somebody that they know, their friend's drug use, or somebody that's doing something, and now they're able to help this third party that they didn't know anything about to begin with. So just asking simply, what do you already know? What have you seen about drugs on Snapchat? Oh, I've heard there's this thing. Kids love to know more than their parents, and this is their opportunity to know more than their parents.
Well, thank you for that. And I will say an hour goes by very quickly on this topic. We very much want to keep everyone engaged and want to grow this audience. We want to grow the people who are aware. We want to grow the number of people who take action. You'll get a nice little note from us thanking you for being here, but that's not just a thank you note, that's a stay involved note. And so there'll be things on there that you can do immediately to keep involved, to stay involved. We're going to put the websites up in the chat or somewhere, but so if you have them, Void is simply Stop the Void. And the Alexander Neville Foundation, stopthevoid.org, and the Alexander Neville Foundation is anfhelp.org. And they're both active on social media, as is at McGruff at NCPC on all social media platforms. McGruff is on Snapchat as a visible presence to help protect kids. NCPC does not provide any funds for advertisement on Snapchat.
One of the things, Paul, I didn't get to put, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to send it to you, is HSI's tip line.
Please,
if parents have information that they think is relevant, that is something with, someone grooming their son, or daughter, and they're sending these inappropriate messages and they're grooming them to purchase something, we have our tip line. It's 1-866-DHS-2-ICE, which is 1-866-347-2423. Also, if you go to DHS or HSIs.gov website, it's also on there where you can link on it and send an anonymous tip and give us the relevant information, so maybe we can prevent something even before it happens.
Terrific. The more information, the better. Information is how most crimes are solved. People who are closest to the information often provide the best leads and the best tips. So please help. We can all be helpers. And a thought to leave everyone with is from none other than Mr. Rogers. When times are difficult, when something bad happens, what do? You look for the helpers. And we're so glad that we've introduced you to three really important helpers today, and that we want to introduce more helpers out there. And we view McGruff as a helper. McGruff is there for all the parents and families who are facing this. They're here to help. Please email him directly. And teaching him how to respond to emails without opposable thumbs was not easy, but he's intrepid, and you can reach us by an email, as well as other ways, mcgruff@ncpc.org, and we will get back to you. We want to do more. We want to help. We want to help people help. So for everyone who joined us today and at home, please spread the word. This will be available if somebody wants to go back and watch it again, or pass it on to friends, as well as our public service announcements, all available. We thank you for your time. Amy, Jaime, Josie, thank you, not just for what you've done, because I know tomorrow you're going to wake up and do even more. So we thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.